Welcome back to another episode of Shades of Blue Soccer Show. We gotta have like an individual name for this, like little just one-on-one breakdown of stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, probably. I got nothing right now though for you,
Yeah,
Thad.
me either. 1v1. No. Anyway, a few
That's not a
pieces of
bad
news.
idea.
Yeah, well, it's except it won't always be that. I mean, we will probably have other people.
At some point.
Yeah, some point when we can arrange it far enough in advance. How about that? Um, couple pieces of news today. At least three, four, five. I don't know. Big one.
However many you want to talk about.
Well, we're trying to keep them short, so we will keep them limited to less than 20. How about that?
Works for me.
Cool. One of the first big ones is homegrown signing. Homegrown signing. Wilson Harris, Sporting KC adds the best youth striker in the USL.
This is a signing. I know I've talked with you privately about this that has been one that I feel has needed to be made for Sporting KC. Basically, I would say going back to even late last season when he had that really good run to end the 2019 season.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I feel should be and now is on a first team contract. He's proven that he can play at the USL level, and it's that opportunity to step up and play at the next level basically for him. It's the progression that Vermes has stated he wants with the academy and the USL team to go from one to build up to where you're on the first team. So he's proven it at the academy level. He proved it at the USL level. Now it's time to see if he can prove it at the MLS level.
And not only has he proven it, but he seems to be getting better at it. So I mean, it's not like he scored 10 at the academy level and 9 at the USL level. I mean, he seems to be getting even better at it.
Yeah, he's becoming a more consistent goal scorer. And I mean, this year with everything that SKC2 had to deal with two home games, going on the road pretty much every week, it it's cliche, but it shows character. The
Yep.
players that can step up in those sorts of situations and and not just survive but thrive basically. And he proved that he's a consistent striker.
And he's a consistent striker that's not a one trick pony either. I looking through his highlight reel earlier. He scored with his left. He scored with his right. He scored with his head. He scored from uh, breakaways into the box. He scored shots threaded through traffic. He one of them he scored by totally reading a pass, back pass that a guy was going to make before they were even in the view of the camera. You know what I mean? So
He's had poacher goals and he's had goal scorers goals basically
yes.
is what you're saying. So I mean he has a well-rounded game at this point is a good way of putting it. He does a lot of work, and he does a lot of work defensively from the games I saw, which is something that we both know Vermes likes in his forwards.
Which is one of the things actually talked to him briefly this afternoon. One of the things he said he had to get better at was fitness, and so he could play the sporting way, and he did. So, congrats to him. Well deserved signing, I think. Do you think he makes it at the MLS level?
I I think he can. Um, I'm not sure if he'll be a world beater. I know my comment to you that now I have egg on my face that I'll share this publicly is um, I felt he should and could replace Hurtado basically. Now I said that to you before Hurtado went on the current tear that he's on, but he's the type of guy that I mean he as a homegrown he provides a an appealing roster spot, being on the supplemental roster, not taking up not salary, not counting against the cap, all of that. And he's proven he can score. So those are two things that are hard to find basically. And no disrespect to Hurtado or what he's done, but those things with wanting to build a competitive roster, you are limited in where you can build in MLS. So having Polito, Shelton, and Hurtado that can all play that number 9 position, you don't necessarily want 3 guys that are taking up senior roster spots playing there. So in that regard, you have somebody like Harris who can play there if need be, but isn't going to be required to play there in a normal season where you're not playing every 3 days, and can play with the USL team for the most part, while Polito and Shelton get most of the reps at the number
Yep.
9. So it makes sense to me that you have a third forward who is someone like Harris and less like Hurtado. And again, that no disrespect to Hurtado, he's done great. Nobody else on this roster, save maybe Polito, could score the goal he scored against Nashville. But in terms of roster building, him holding a roster spot with the other weapons that we have offensively could be used elsewhere, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue that. The only thing I would say is you could always slide Shelton back to the wing. You could maybe move Hurtado to the wing, which I don't think he's ever really done a lot of. Maybe he has some, but
Well, and I'm not saying you don't play Shelton on the wing. I'm just saying that in the hierarchy of
the 9 spot.
the 9 spot, it's Polito, and at this point, based on form, it's Hurtado over Shelton. At this point, for me at least, Hurtado is the more informed striker. But either way, I don't think you want 3 guys that would regularly play the 9 that are all taking up a senior roster spot, when you could use one of those senior roster spots on a central midfielder, on a winger, on another wing back, as a nice segue to our next topic.
Cool. Before we do that, the one thing that I would love to see Harris have the opportunity of, because definitely SKC2 didn't do it a lot this year, and not even as much last year, is dominate possession. So to see how he helps break down a team. They did do it at times, don't get me wrong, but I want to see where Sporting has traditionally had a lot of possession and then couldn't break down a team to get a shot on goal to save their life some games. I want to see how he plays in that role.
And that's a fair argument. The way SKC2 played basically the last 2 years with playing a lot of younger players, they're not going to dominate possession the way Sporting does. So.
They had their moments and they had some games, but not as regularly as the senior team. So I just want to throw that out there before we segued into the extra wing back, outside back kind of player that might be needed, because we got the news that I've been expecting for the last couple of weeks, or basically since the day it happened, that Zusi underwent surgery and will be out for the rest of the year, total of 4 to 5 months before he's back to training.
Yeah, the only question I guess I have, and it's a very minor one, but it was one that was asked on Twitter to me as well when the news broke, is I didn't realize that sprains would a sprain would require surgery, I guess is the best way of putting it. I mean, I've probably forgotten how many times I've sprained an ankle playing soccer. So, I mean, obviously there are different grades and different levels to the severity of the sprain. And based off of, honestly, I thought, and I don't know the bones in the foot, but or in the leg, I almost thought that Zusi had maybe broke what's the little bone that, like, you have 2 bones in your lower leg. There's the shin bone and then the one behind it. I don't remember the name
tibia.
of it. Sure, maybe.
Well, that's the 2 bottom ones, fibia and tibia.
Yeah. So I thought there's the one that's the more load-bearing one, which is the shin bone, which I think is the fibia. And then you have the back one, which is less load-bearing, I guess. And when I saw it happen, that's what I thought Zusi had done, is that bone had broken, basically. But so
Yeah.
the sprain is a little weird, but I mean, I or at least requiring surgery for the sprain is a little weird in my opinion. But I'm I'm not a professional soccer player, so I don't. And I don't know that we don't know the grade of the sprain or
Yeah.
any of that. So I mean, it's hard to speak on. It's just it's not something. It's not the injury I expected, I guess is the right way to say it.
And honestly, they might just be giving it a generic term because I've seen them do that for injuries before, just kind of giving it a very generic and without being there in person to ask these questions to like, well, what do you mean it's a sprain? And 27 questions, which we're not going to bother in the only 20 minutes of a video presser that we get with Vermees to probably nail it down that far because there's probably other things to ask. But I would have been able to do that in the past years. So the only thing I can think of is that it may be a sprain that because of where it's at and potentially his age won't tighten
He
up the same way that it would
heal
have
the
in the
same
past.
way. Yeah, yeah,
I had a torn plantar fascius, that the ligament that runs across the bottom of the foot that keeps the arch up.
yeah.
And essentially they said, oh, we could do surgery on it, but if you're not a professional athlete, we don't recommend it. And that was a partially torn so that it had loosened up and so that it would allow my foot to roll over, which then caused lots of pain. Long story. Nobody really cares. But I associate it with that sort of thing where it was a partially torn, strained, sprained ligament, tendon. I don't want to pretend to be a doctor here. So,
Yeah, yeah, it, yeah. It's a tough situation for Zuzi, because he for as much abuse isn't the right word, but for as much crap as he takes sometimes from some fans of the
yeah.
team, he's still for specifically for his defensive work rate, he's still a very key contributor to the team.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's a reason he's still starting um, over Lindsay, and there's a reason that Vermes hasn't brought in another full-time starter since Zuzi transitioned to that position, basically.
And just kind of a more of a clarification, it's not his work rate. It's just because you said his defensive work rate, he worked his butt off. So it's not work rate as much as positioning and instinct, I would say. Fair enough?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the injury basically leaves Sporting with three outside backs now on the roster.
Semi healthy.
It's three healthy, semi-healthy with at this point, I'd say Lindsay and Dia are the clear starters, at least form-wise, in my opinion, because I
Yeah.
think Dia's beaten out Martins for the left back spot. So
Yeah. I can see bringing Martins in when you need more of a crossing kind of guy because when he's in form, he's better at it than Dia.
but yet Dia is the one who played the ball to Hurtado against Nashville, and
True.
then the next game against Dallas. I know we don't want to talk about the Dallas game because of how poor it was, but some of the few chances Kansas City created were from long balls by Dia to, like, in the first half. I remember a really nice long ball over the top to Jerso that got Jerso in behind Dallas's defense. So I mean, Dia's for as good as I've heard people say Martins is with the crossing, Dia's Dia's not very far behind him.
I I see him being better at driving to the line and putting it back into the box, which by crossing I more mean lobbing. So I'm trying to make sure we're saying the same things here.
Gotcha.
Not that Dia sucks at it. I just think that Martins, when he's on, he's better at it. Does that make sense? Dia is almost has like that Jerso ability of getting to the end line and then playing it back into the middle. Actually, better than Jerso in some regards because it passes fine people a little bit more often, but
Well,
obviously without the speed.
yeah. Well, and honestly, the way that, in my opinion, the way Sporting's been more dangerous has been the way Jerso and Dia have attacked, which is attacking the line, getting into the box, and then playing the ball, basically getting to the end line and then playing the ball on the ground across to the top of the six, basically. Yep. That's where I feel like Sporting's found a lot of success in the last few weeks, is going down all the way, getting into the box, and then playing that little square or little trail pass to the middle for a trailing runner. That, I mean, Nashville, I think we absolutely destroyed their outside backs. Both Russell and Jerso did that very effectively in that game. Mm-hmm. It was effective to a point against Dallas. So I don't know. In my opinion, the way Sporting is going to be successful right now is continue those runs, which is why I'm in favor of Dia being the starter at this point.
No, we're in complete agreement on that. I'm just, the only thing I was pointing out about Martins is that I think he's better at is the long crosses. At least he was. So beginning of the year he was.
Yeah. But anyway, going back to the right back position, we have Lindsay and Duke, basically, because Duke spent a little bit of time there in like practice and stuff. I think that's about it for the right back depth at this point, because I don't think Dia or Martins has spent a lot of time at right back. I know we had a discussion about this previously, and it was Abdul Salam that did a lot of switching when we had both of them. It was Abdul Salam that would go left when Zusi was on the right. I don't think Dia or Martins either one of them have gone to the right back side. So if Lindsay needs a break, I'm not entirely sure what way Burmese is going to go.
Well, look at it this way. There's only a couple more games left in the season. 4. They get a week break. And then playoffs. So he's only got to string together like 8 starts.
True.
Which he's young.
Yep.
The question, though, the bigger problem would be if he gets hurt, I think. So if that happens, then don't really know what you do.
I mean, again, if you look at SKC2 as a potential last-minute signing for a depth signing there, the right back position for SKC2 late in the season was basically by committee of academy contracted players,
because they were doing better than the guy they signed to play there.
Yeah, then Rabin, was it? Rabin was the right back. Sam Rabin. Rabin was the right back. Cerna was the left back. So in a sense, it's disappointing for Cerna, because if it was the left back they needed help in, I would have a feeling that Cerna probably would have been signed at this point. But
and quite honestly, maybe they should anyway, just for having that extra coverage at this point.
I mean, they do have the roster space at this point. If they really needed to sign somebody, they still do. Even with the Harris signing, they still do have a roster spot to sign somebody if they need to.
And how much longer is the window open?
Week from tomorrow, as we're recording this on the 21st, it closes on the 29th.
Okay.
So still a little bit of time. So if something happens this weekend, they can make something happen in the couple days before the window closes.
Presuming they play this weekend.
Everything I'm seeing, it looks like Colorado may finally have it under control. They haven't had a reported positive since they started their 10-day quarantine that the Colorado Health Department and the league and the team put into place. So it sounds
they're
like
back to training.
Not full team training. I had just read. I think I'd have to go reread the Athletic article I was reading before.
I thought I saw a tweet today that they were back to full training, or maybe it's tomorrow they're back to full training. But
yeah, maybe the Athletic article I was reading was old, like from the quote came from the day before or something.
Yeah.
Yes. They're either just starting or they're about to start, basically, which less than a half a week before the game, it'll be an interesting game, I guess would be a good way of putting it, in
Yeah,
seeing how the Rapids are going to come out.
they should be well rested.
Yes, yes, they certainly should. And you would think they would also be hungry to actually get out on the field and actually play a game.
Yes. All right. Let's see. Some other news today was Comets. Kansas City Comets announced the re-signing of Kevin Ellis. We've actually kind of known about it for a few days because they accidentally posted it for a very, very short, brief time. But it is official now. So former Sporting Kansas City homegrown defender Kevin Ellis is re-signed for his third year with the Comets.
Yep. And it'll be, assuming they have a season, which they've lost 3 teams now in the MASL. They lost the 2
in
Mexican
Mexico.
teams, and then
and-
earlier this week, the Wave announced that they will not be able to use their arena this season. So the Wave are going to sit out this season. So
a lot of it depends on every locality of what they'll allow.
yeah,
I don't know
and
what Independence will allow, but
yeah, I don't know what. I assume they'll follow Jackson County, which I believe has a percentage capacity right now.
yeah, it's. I haven't looked lately, but I know like at one point Blue Springs was suing them so they could have more people at their football games.
Well, that was because they could technically have more people inside at their amphitheater that
Yeah,
held 5,000 people than they could at their football games. So that's why I believe it's just been switched to a percentage of
yeah.
the capacity, which I don't have that percentage number off the top of my head. So, but at this point, I would, if and when the league actually has a season, I would expect there to be limited capacity at Cable Dahmer. I was going to say Silverstein, but
I know.
it is Cable Dahmer Arena now.
That's the problem with getting like old, man. I can't try to remember the right names for these places. I was like
Uh-huh.
IEC, SEC, no, Cable Dahmer Arena, CDA. Is that what it is?
CDA. I think that's what it is now. Is Cable Dahmer Arena. So
That's why I still go to Sandstone. You know, I mean, it's had 20 names, but I still call it Sandstone. So
mhm.
uh,
That's okay. I still do too. So,
well,
but yeah.
why keep
So,
track of it? You know?
but I I like Ellis returning. I think he's still miles ahead of a lot of the players that are on the roster, and that's not a fault for any of the other players on the roster.
No,
He's just a better soccer player than many of the players.
there's a reason that he played MLS. I
Yeah,
mean, what
and yeah,
100 games or something?
give or take. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, he could probably still be playing somewhere in MLS or in the USL
Yep.
Championship if he wanted to
He
at
could
this point.
he could definitely be playing in USL now. I know he had offers in MLS the first year when he stopped, but they were just not here. And with a young family, he didn't want to be traveling. He didn't want to be in another city away from both of their families, and not being able to be around kids and stuff like that. So that's just one of those decisions you have to make. And, if you're a superstar making $1 million a year, that's a little bit different story. But you're not. That becomes more important to do maybe family. So with the Comets, he gets to stay home. I mean, yes, he'll travel for road games, but I mean, he's training locally here,
Yeah, he's not living in an apartment in
Montreal or some
outside Montreal and coming home when they don't play on a weekend to see the family. So
right. So yeah, no ungodly holes for hell holes of apartments in Cincinnati or something.
so
Anyway, good signing, and they I can't remember if we talked last time, but they signed the Brazilian forward who was playing in the PASL.
I think we mentioned it briefly.
Yeah,
The guy that was playing with Springfield.
yeah. Anyway, they with that combination, hopefully that means Leo doesn't have to play as much, so he can actually coach a little bit more.
Or isn't relied upon to be the leading scorer again,
Yeah,
or the main goal threat again.
correct. So he can fill in, be a little bit less relied
Yeah,
upon.
yeah.
Yeah. See, there's any other good news? Any other
Uh,
bad news? Weird news? Supporter
uh,
shield. That was it.
yes, there was the Supporters Shield and the Supporters Shield Foundation, or whatever the official name is for the group that originally said that, oh, we're not going to do the Supporters Shield this year.
Now, the first thing was because teams were not playing the same amount of games.
Well, the original thing, from what I remember, was that they had put out a notice that said that because of because of the fact that fans were not allowed in the stadiums,
Was
and
that the first statement though? I thought
I'm
the very first one was something else, and then they followed it up with that.
no, the addendum to it, which actually was the part that made more sense, was the lack of a balanced schedule.
Okay.
The problem with that is, um, there's precedent for awarding the Supporters Shield when teams don't play the same number of games.
Yeah, they just forgot about that little
Well,
year.
and see, this is where, like, you don't want to award it in 2020 because of all the stuff that's gone down with it. I don't agree with it, but if you were honest and said, hey, with all the craziness, we're not going to do it this year, I wouldn't agree with it. I'd probably raise a bit of a stink about it,
Yeah.
but I'd move on and get over it. But the lack of knowledge and willingness to know the history is
Disappointing.
unforgivable to me if you are in the position of of responsibility for this trophy, for the Supporters Shield.
Yeah.
If you are on that committee, if you are on that foundation, it should be your part of your responsibility to know at, at least a rudimentary history of the award and it being given out, because in 2001 it was given out even though teams did not play the same number of games due to the due to the September 11th attacks.
Now, I'll try to play a little devil's advocate here. I think in 2001, teams only missed a couple games, right?
One
Um,
to two, depending on
right.
depending on who, depending on how many games you'd played by the point. Like Sporting, well, the Wizards had played 27. Some teams had played 26.
Right. So there's that aspect to it. It's only like one game difference or two games difference, where this year you could have Colorado with maybe 5 games off by the time this is all over. Um, even though I'm less worried about that. I would understand if they had just come out and said that it's always competitively unbalanced, but this is so much more competitively unbalanced because you have teams like Sporting who plays Dallas, Houston, Minnesota, Colorado, Chicago, Nashville, and you have teams that play Seattle, Portland, LA. You know what I mean? They're not crossing over
Yeah,
that
no,
at
you
all.
have a very unbalanced schedule, not just in terms of games played, but
Right.
in level of competition. Like, I mean,
Toronto getting to play 2 minor league teams in Canada all the time.
yeah, Toronto getting 4 games against Montreal and Vancouver.
Right.
Um, Teams getting to beat up on San Jose when they were playing horrible right after the bubble and conceding like 30 goals in 5 games or something
Yeah.
like that.
Both
So
LAs for a while.
yeah, So I mean, it is. If they'd have come out with those sorts of reasons to begin with, I wouldn't. Again, as I said, I wouldn't necessarily have agreed with it, but I would have understood it.
Right.
But they came out with a very lame excuse of not having passionate fans in the stands. And then there's just been leak after leak after leak from people on the Independent Supporters Council of how the board for the Supporters Shield came to their decision that it just has become so frustrating and annoying to the whole situation that I question the leadership of the foundation and partially the Independent Supporters Council a little bit in that regard.
I don't think you should question it a little bit. I think you should question it more than that. Again, I would have, when I first heard they were canceling it, I thought it was because of the competitive unbalanced schedule, lack of competitive balance. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm good with that. I was quite good with that. But then when the rest of it came out, it really made it look bad. I also questioned that, was it Toronto saying, oh, our players are playing for that? Are they? Is that, I mean, I don't know how many players even in MLS are playing for the Supporters Shield versus an MLS Cup.
Yeah, it's just putting the league in a situation where they're going to say, okay, fine, we'll just create a new trophy and block
Yep.
the supporters out of it. And as somebody who has heard the story of the creation of the supporter shield from one of the men who helped to get it created, Sam Piran, who helped get it created in the first place. I've heard that story from him multiple times. I love hearing that story, because it shows just the level of support and commitment from the league for the league when it was in its infancy.
Right.
That to potentially lose it because some people don't know the history of the supporters shield, it, it's frustrating, especially as someone like me who
Lives and dies on the accurate history.
yes, who loves the history of it,
Yeah.
who is a diehard fan of the league and the history of the league. I mean, I spend the, there are I'm going to toot my own horn here. There are very few people who know more about the league than I do. That I just love learning about the league. I love the history. I
Yeah.
love everything to do with it. And to potentially see a great grassroots building block of the league go away because of a
Ignorance.
committee's stupidity and ignorance of the history of the award, it pisses me off a lot.
Yeah. No, I understand. I wonder how, because I paid no attention to the Supporters Council. Maybe I should, but I don't. How many of them are fans that have been around for a while? How many of them are fans of teams that have been around for since '96? I don't understand.
I took back when the Wizards became Sporting. I took a big step back in terms of uh, leadership,
Mm-hmm.
for the Cauldron. Before the shift to to Sporting, I was a active leader of the Cauldron, basically. And by the time they moved into the stadium, I personally was burned out and was ready to just be a fan again. And I so I took a step back. So I don't know a lot of the inner workings, I guess, of the council and the ISC anymore in that regard. It's just a frustration from a fan aspect and somebody who, while still a member of a supporters group, is not really worried about the day-to-day activities of it. Basically, I'm one that wants to show up to the tailgate, maybe get some food, have a couple beers, go to the game, cheer, and then go home. I don't want to set up. I don't want to tear down. I don't want to lead cheers. I just want to go there, cheer my team on, have some beers, have some fun with friends, and go home. That's just where I'm at as a fan right now. So I don't necessarily want to be involved in the leadership. It's just frustrating, I guess, as somebody who's semi outside to see what's going on in bits and pieces on the inside for this.
No, I understand. It's sad that they don't know that history better, and that they aren't better organized and have better planning at this point. So, and I understand what you mean too, about how you serve in a role for a certain amount of time, and then there's a certain amount of time you want to just be a fan. And that's I've always tried to walk that fine line between being a fan and being independently objective of things. So yes, I mean, I obviously am a fan, but I also can't go be a part of a supporters group. It just won't work. All right. Any other good news, bad news, interesting news?
I don't think so. I think I've talked enough.
Cool. All right. Then let's wrap it up. We probably talked a little bit longer than we planned on. Shock. We need to do this more often so we get better at being fast. Mike.
Hey, it was all news for the day, more or less. So blame everybody for dropping all the news on the same day.
Yeah, we could have done 3 10-minute ones, right?
Give or take, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, probably still wouldn't happen. But anyway, thanks to anybody who's listened this long. Listen to any of it, but you have to wait this long to get the thank you. And we will do more of these. Thank you.